Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to my room. Um, this is a welcome to Module 7. This is a very, I think, intense module that brings together again a lot of the ideas that we've been saying in the other modules and putting them into certain constructs of feminism that some of them are news to me, some of them are probably news to you as well. I have to say that watching all the videos and reading the papers, the articles, and other texts in this module has left me feeling a bit sad and a bit, what, discouraged maybe at what we are facing in the world as women and as others in terms of expectations that we have not been a part of socially constructing, social constructions that continue to control us, I guess, continue to deny us a full understanding of what it means to live in a moral and just world. In particular, the video about Fort St. John and that area uh, brought tears to my eyes actually when I considered the young Indigenous women that are growing up in violence brought to them by the oil and gas industry, and considering the violence that, lateral violence even, that the oil and gas industry continues to bring, in particular to the vulnerable and the marginalized in our province and in other countries that depend on those kinds of economies. But on a lighter note, I want to share with you a story about me and my sisters. So I have two sisters. As I told you before, one of them died of breast cancer a few years ago. She was a philosopher she was a professor in philosophy. She did philosophy of the mind, and she was cross-appointed with women's and gender studies at Dalhousie University. She was quite pivotal, actually, in helping to develop the framework for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in terms of memory and intergenerational effects of the violence of the residential schools. Her name is Sue Campbell. So if you're interested, Google her, and there are a number of her presentations and articles there. So she and my younger sister, I'm the oldest, Sue was the middle one, Lori was the youngest, have always felt that I was not a good enough feminist for them. So Sue was classically trained in feminist theory, and Lori was not as classically trained, but really embraced sort of a self program of learning about that. Whereas my scholarship was really focused on, as I've told you, instructional design, adult education, continuing education, engagement scholarship, and so on, using a feminist lens. In any event, Sue and Laura would very often get together and discuss what I needed to learn or how I needed to sort of pull up my feminist socks. And then they'd designate one person to call me, and that person would call and say, okay, Katie, we're really concerned that, and, da da da. They'd sort of list that. And one morning I went to the mailbox and opened the mailbox, and I had found this text in it: Feminist Thought by Rosemary Tong. Sue had sent it to me from her library, her feminist library at Dalhousie University. And I thought, okay, I'm tired of them telling me I'm not a good enough feminist, and I'm going to figure out what kind of feminist I am, because that's really, really important. So I go through the chapters. Liberal feminism, radical feminism, Marxist and socialist feminism, psychoanalytic and gender feminism, existential feminism, postmodern feminism. So I read each chapter. I think, yeah. That feels good. That feels comfortable. My values align with that. And then I get to this part in the chapter and think, oh, nope, I can't go with that. So I flip to the next chapter and I keep on going. And it's kind of like they had given me homework. And I finally ended up at ecofeminism. And there was a place that I felt comfortable, although, again, there were a lot of questions that I wanted to raise. So never did it occur to me, of course, that these were white feminisms that I was looking at, and that my sisters we're proposing, I become very familiar with, um, and in some way kind of resolve an identity problem, which I'm not sure I had, to tell you the truth. Um, and so ecofeminism can continue to be very comfortable for me because of my care for animals and the earth. I don't eat meat, for example. Try to be sustainable. Could do a lot better, I'm sure. But those underline my values. So what this module taught me, again, was that it's not an easy thing. First of all, identify an identity as a particular feminist, because there's such a wide diversity of thought and experience, culture, and context. And so I think I've let that particular uh, homework fall off my desk, and I'm not going to try to do that anymore. It also reminded me that the kind of feminism that I grew up with in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and even into the 90s was rather an uncritical examination of the world through white feminist eyes of privilege, that I was not very reflexive about, although I've tried very, very hard in the past decade to become reflexive about that, to think reflexively, to do my research reflexively, to write reflexively. Certainly, Indigenous feminisms are so new to me. 5 years, 7 years. I've learned so much from members in our department, Dr. Lannon Whiskey-Jack, for example, whose courses are amazing, and I really encourage that you take them. So this particular module, while it seems like it has a lot of resources, a lot of things to watch, a lot of things to read, I think tries really hard to kind of round out this notion we have of a feminist world, um, and a socially just world. And I hope you take something from it and that we can discuss those kinds of things very um, in innovative ways in the discussions. Now, speaking of the discussions, Stephanie and I again are talking about the kinds of things that we're seeing, and we're seeing lots of really good thinking there. I do note, however, that a lot of you are not participating in the discussions, and we really encourage you to do that because your learning, while important, of course, is just your learning, and you need other eyes and you need other perspectives to bounce off of so that you can dig deeper into your own learning. So please do that. We're also enjoying the challenge assignments. You need to get going on those. There isn't much time left. Remember that you have to do 2 challenge assignments, and they need to be from different modules. And there are 2 different Dropboxes. So you need to submit your first challenge assignment to Dropbox Challenge Assignment 1 and your second challenge assignment to Dropbox Challenge Assignment 2. And those do have deadlines. So we've seen poems, and we've seen videos, and we've seen PowerPoint presentations, and I really enjoyed a journey through a drugstore with a camera. For instance, it was kind of a photo essay. So there's lots of different kinds of things that you can do to satisfy these challenge assignments. And I encourage you really to think creatively, and don't think about writing. Well, you can. I won't accept it. Don't write a scholarly paper. That's for the rhetorical précis. So don't do that. Have some fun with it. And I'll see you in the next module.